Joining us now from Cardiff for this discussion is Mark Reckless, once of course MP for Rochester and Stroud, now Policy Development Director for UKIP. Good to have you with us, Mark. We really missed you in that debate. Did you miss being part of it?
Well, of course I'd have liked to be there, but the people of Rochester and Stroud took their decision, and I accept that. But I believe we'd be better off as an independent country trading with Europe, and I hope I played my part, at least through winning a vote to cut the EU budget against David Cameron's wishes in Parliament, in getting that commitment to a referendum, and we're now going to see it. I just hope it's a free and fair referendum and not one that the Prime Minister is going to bias in favour of his side. OK,
so I'm sure we'll hear more from you on this. You talk about the part you've played. There's still more to play. You're Director of Policy for UKIP. Is that a full-time job now? Does it pay your mortgage?
Yes, it's a full-time job. I'm not sure I have to sort of publish how much I'm paid anymore, but I'm enjoying the role and hope to do a good job in it.
OK, now when you were Conservative MP for Rochester and Stroud, you held, didn't you, your own mini referendum? I may be over-glamorising it slightly. What did you learn from that?
Well, I learned that there's a huge support for having a referendum. Also, I thought in Rochester and Stroud, and perhaps in Kent, there was perhaps stronger support even than nationally for our being an independent country, and once again making our own decisions, not least to control our own borders, but at least as importantly to be a more prosperous country where we trade freely with the whole world rather than tying ourselves to one declining continent in Europe.
Just remind me, what was the turnout in your little poll, your referendum in Rochester and Stroud?
I think we had about 1 in 5 people who returned their ballot.
OK. All right, we'll come back to appetite in a moment for joining in the referendum. Tom Tugendhat, will you make your own mind up based on what your constituents want or what you think's right?
Well, I'll talk to my constituents. I'll talk to not only my party but also every constituent who I have the great honour to represent. You know, I'm not just representing the Conservative Party in Tunbridge and Morling, I'm representing the people of Tunbridge, Edenbridge and Morling, and so I will be talking to as many people as I can in the coming years. But for me the decision is not one that I can take now, and that's very, very simple.
But if you had to, and hold on. If you were asked today based on the current model, based on
been clear about that. I've already said publicly that I think the current settlement isn't a good one, and based on the current settlement I wouldn't accept it.
That is strategic, isn't it? Because in a year or two's time you can look terribly loyal to your leader by saying, oh, I've been won over. David Cameron's got such a good deal that now it's worth staying in.
Well, only if it is. I don't know what deal he's going to get. I mean, until I've seen the deal that he comes back with, I can't make a decision on it.
What's the bare minimum for you?
Well, for me, actually, one of the most important things is to do with the sovereignty of Parliament, and that is all to do with the nature of our status between the judges and the people. But that's not just a European question.
We should have a veto on anything that comes up in the European Parliament. We should have a veto.
No, that's not actually the area I was talking about. I was talking about the balance between the judiciary and the legislative. And that's a balance that actually we have in the United Kingdom, not only between our own judges and our own people.
So in the simplest terms, what does he need to secure for you to make you happy on that?
Well, he's got to secure a whole bunch of different things, but what I want to see is a package of reforms, and I can't speak for what the package is going to be until I start to see where the negotiation goes.
No more detail from you than we get from David Cameron on what he's trying to get.
It's very difficult to lay out detail on a multifaceted...
But what's going to make it incredibly difficult is for people to understand what they're being offered. Nobody's honest about what is a good deal and what's a bad deal.
I don't accept that, Julia. The British people are extremely intelligent and are extremely adept at understanding what is before them. We are a nation, as Napoleon said, a nation of shopkeepers. That's what we do. We trade, we understand international business, and Mark, as a former banker, understands exactly how you trade internationally. So all this sort of stuff about how you negotiate internationally is exactly what the British people are very good at.
OK. Chris Oxlade, does it really matter what MPs and ministers think? Because after all, we're the ones who are going to make a decision, not them.
No, I think it's good we're actually going to have a referendum. I think it's good that we're getting behind that. I mean, if you take where I'm from in Crawley, Gatwick is in our constituency, and it's responsible for half the business rates for the whole of West Sussex, Crawley, because of the airport. Now, my fear has always been with the European Union, if we pull out before renegotiation or some kind of change, then we're Gatwick might have to renegotiate its trade deal for the next 5 years. It took 5 years in the 90s. Will it take another 5 years? And we're putting what is a very fragile economy, and the growth at the moment is incredibly small. We're putting that at risk.
OK, so there's an issue for Gatwick, but how pressing, when you're knocking on doors in Crawley ahead of the general election, how pressing was the...
It wasn't coming up. I mean, People are talking about cost of living, they're talking about whether or not they can afford childcare, whether or not they can fill out their car up.
So will people vote in the referendum with relish? I know it's not a like-for-like example, but Mark was telling us a minute ago, 1 in 5 people in Rochester and Stroud joined in his little...
Yeah, I mean, it was a very small turnout in Rochester. I mean, I commend Mark for actually, putting his head above the parapet and trying to find out what people think. And, we'd like that. I mean, our Conservative MP has made it clear what his views of the European Union and what he'd like to see done. But it's important, and I'll take my hat off to Tom, to actually make sure you're listening to what people want.
OK. Mark Reckless, you're the most ardent out campaigner, I think, in the South East. What people will need in the months to come, and Tom says we all understand it perfectly already. I'm not convinced by that. I think people need clear arguments. So kick us off. Why would the South East be better off if Britain left the EU?
Because we can better govern ourselves than 27 other countries can do it for us.
I want you to be specific to the South East, not just generally across Britain. Why would it benefit the South East?
Well, the South East, we're a better off region than many across the country, and we pay far, far more into the European Union than we get back. We could be spending that money on what we chose in our region rather than getting only a tiny bit back of what we put in and having to spend it as the European Union tells us. So that, I think, would make us better off, and it would also make us more democratic, because people we elect and call to account are making decisions rather than this racket where corporate lobbyists in a sort of closed room in Brussels decide what's going to happen to their benefit rather than the people out there in the country. And that's not a system we believe in. We should be an open democracy, and we should be prosperous, trading with the whole world, not just one declining part of it. That's what UKIP believes.
Sorry to cut across you. Let's just briefly bring Tom Tugendhat back in. What do you say to the vineyard owner who says to you, who's going to come and pick my grapes? And what do you say to the business owner who says, how am I going to carry on exporting to EU?
Well, that's why these things are not clear, and it depends what we get in the renegotiation, because this is give and take. I was talking to a chap who makes extremely high-tech chemicals that go into things like latex gloves and into paint to make them antibiotic, and he works out of a very high-tech factory in Edenbridge. Now, his market is a lot in Europe. Now, if we can't get a good trade deal that works on that sort of thing, if we can't get a good trade deal that allows English apples and the finest Kent apples that we grow here and the finest Kent strawberries to be able to be sold in the markets of Europe, then we're in a bit of trouble. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we get the right deal for the UK, the right deal for the South East, and that's why I can't make a decision until I've seen what the
strawberry growers tell us they don't sell that much abroad because of the nature of the product, but I'll let that one hang. Very quick thought on this one for Chris. Do you think people already know how they're going to vote? I mean, is it tribal? Is it more emotional than practical?
I think we'll wait and see over the next few months. I mean, particularly, where I live, people in Crawley know exactly how important the EU is to trade with the airport on its doorstep.
OK, thank you both very much. Now let's turn our attention to...